My life is a colorful storybook filled with trials and successes. My life has not been simple. I am a first-generation college student and the child of immigrants. I took the chance to go into higher education, and little did I know that this once shy girl would serve as the student body president and the CEO of the Associated Students Incorporated, our student government at Cal State San Bernardino. My parents are from Colima, Mexico, specifically Cuauhtemoc and Buena Vista. And both sides of my family in Mexico participate in local government. I swore to myself as a young child that I would not do that because being a woman, specifically my ethnic background, it's difficult serving folks outside of your values and morals. Now I serve, and every decision that is made on this campus, I am a part of that decision-making process. I redefined what it means to be a student leader. I serve all. Student leaders, we don't have a guide to lead, and leaders in general. There are so many leadership styles. I lead with my heart, my soul, and what my values and morals tell me to do. I would never say yes to something that I morally couldn't do that would hurt my constituents, even if it's just one student. I wasn't exposed to that kind of leadership where every single thing, every single deed, every single initiative, everything that you do goes back to what you believe in. And that's how you lead. And I thought to myself, am I going at this radical because I care and really love our students? I called my executive director, Dr. Jesse Felix, asking him what that is. And he responds with, that is congruent leadership. And I said, huh? He responds with, yeah, leading with love, leading from your heart. Every single task, everything that you do goes back to your values and your morals. I honor my constituents every day by leading with love. Now, how did I do that? I took that and I ran. You see, I changed how this university views student government for years to come. For example, grading policies during the COVID-19 pandemic. I analyzed my constituents' cultural and economic background, and we worked towards creating an institutional credit-no credit system that would stay until we were back in-person teaching. This benefited not everyone at our campus, but it helped a lot of our students needing help. Many times I was in uncomfortable situations, because many disagreed with my stances and the way I went about things. You have to keep pushing when it's from your heart. Leaders, great leaders, say the truth with no fear. You have to be fearless, especially when it comes to students. I ran so far with utilizing congruent leadership, I went as far as giving back the students their money back in grants, funding student employment, meaningful endowments, gifts, intentional speakers, speaking on critical race theory and activism, and the list goes on. Nowadays, student governments are stuck, and all we do is host events without intention and not reading what our constituents need. You can't compare your leadership or your corporation. Giving your constituents the quality experience they deserve is what we need to do better. In my heart, I could not do the stereotypical student government events with virtual concerts and events promoting the college experience. Students are dying, burnt out, homeless, battling mental illness, afraid of law enforcement. I could not spend student dollars on events that are stereotypical. This year, I questioned every move I made. Are we serving enough? Is our staff comfortable with their pay so they can help our students? How are our students? What are we not saying? Lead with intention. Every action has to be with intention. I did not fall into the need to pass resolutions so often. And I promised myself after I passed a resolution that had no intention, I would not pass resolutions that had no meaning. I would not pass a piece of paper with no action. I would not send a letter to my constituents with no action. And I'm gonna quote a very important person, our Dean of Students on this campus, Dr. Daria Graham. A resolution without action is essentially a weapon. And I took that quote of what Dr. Daria Graham and I really ran again with it. Leading with intention and leading without being performative are keys to promoting a healthy environment. As a leader, we strive to provide a great environment. And in my role, I gave our team that you lead from your heart and advocate to implement change. My thought process when creating change was no one is going to care about me when I graduate. No one is going to remember who I am when I finish my term. I can be as transparent as possible because there are no consequences. I told myself I'm going to make them remember who I am because I'm going to change how folks talk to students. I'm going to change how policies go about. Even if it affects one student, we change it. Serving my constituents, I tailored my role to them and acknowledging the resilience my constituents have. I will not fail to recognize and note that COVID-19 is still well and alive. Thousands of students have lost their job. Family members have passed away. Students are homeless. Students are surviving sexual assault, domestic violence. Students are food insecure. The list goes on and on. These issues arise and students are left with thoughts of, should I graduate? Should I continue? I can graduate in a year. Or should I take this gap year and potentially lose my financial aid so I can be okay mentally? And we have students going back into their households after dorming on campus for years. I'm one of those students, and I can speak from personal experience that going back into a household when I lived alone for 3 years is incredibly difficult on your mental health, especially having strict traditional immigrant parents. These institutions were not built for me. These institutions were made for white males, not made for women and those of different ethnic backgrounds. We need to mention intersectionality, a term that means how racism, sexism, and classism combine in experiences of underrepresented groups. This term was introduced by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw. Although white women were allowed to go to school and did struggle, we need to look deeper in the intersectionality of higher ed. Black, Indigenous, people of color, women specifically, struggled in higher education so we can thrive. As a leader, you all need to recognize and be a part of the discussion and be about diversity, equity, and appreciation, not just your own culture, and merge and learn about different cultures. Always recognize those who have been historically underrepresented. Create scholarships, awards, moments of recognition, and every task and goal you keep in mind of those folks. I run with no filter and no fear, and I acknowledge that this institution was not built for me. Black, Indigenous, people of color, women of different ethnic backgrounds who come from underrepresented communities, we are pleading for help. But higher ed institutions are built to oppress women's needs, beginning with academics. I suffer from reproductive issues, and I fainted in class because I wasn't allowed to go to the restroom during an exam. The system failed me that day, and it has failed many women. Going into leadership with my lived experiences has taught me that we need to start radicalizing higher education, beginning from the system, administration, faculty, staff, and students. Radicalizing higher education is interpreted differently by many, but to me it's creating representation, more faculty and staff that look like the students that they are serving. In my entire academic career, beginning from preschool, I have had 2 Latinx teachers. That's unacceptable. Radicalizing higher ed is being student-centered. And I'm talking about policies, infrastructure, the food on campus. Let students make the decisions. Leaders in higher ed use congruent leadership in higher education. Leaders everywhere, use it and let your constituents be a part of the process. Have folks lead with love and their heart, not for a title, but because you care. With these new ideas and new styles of leadership, there are trials of being a leader. You lose friends, your views change so rapidly, and what you once felt so strongly about, you see in a different lens. As a student, that was very difficult for me. Being a leader is lonely. Being at the top is lonely. My partner tells me that he should be hired because I take work home. Being a leader, you will take work home with you. It's okay to take it home, especially that we are virtual. Our desk is our work, our school, and for me, it's also my makeup vanity. It's how you manage it. Taking it home is cautiously okay. And yes, it's okay to think about and decompress, but get the work done tomorrow. As leaders, we want to fix things now, and it's mentally exhausting, but we cannot serve and honor our constituents if we're not in the right headspace to take care of our own selves. For me, this was not a resume builder or a guaranteed spot at a grad program or a guaranteed job after. This is my life. I started out as an activist on campus fighting for student rights. Being an activist while being a leader is heartbreaking because you're not understood anymore. I have to say that being a leader broke me and made me not as academically driven as I once was. However, it showed me what my true passion and calling was, and that's to lead. My life trials I have faced as a person and in my undergraduate career should have made me drop out. However, it has led me to the highest leadership position I can as a student. I have worked in many areas of this university. I've observed for years the different leadership styles, leaders practiced, watching non-student oriented leaders lead our campus and watch them stay, as well as those who practice congruent leadership and watching them leave to top institutions and thrive. Students are the reason we continue to function as an institution. It's only fitting for a student to have discussed the importance of congruent leadership, because congruent leadership in higher education must be student-centered. Student leaders and anyone in a position of power who rose to leadership during the COVID-19, for most of us, it wasn't a choice. We followed our hearts because our constituents needed us. And that's where we are today. If there's one thing you take away today, please let it be: lead with your heart, creating good change, impactful change. Us as leaders, we hold so much privilege. It's up to us to truly honor our constituents and make the decisions based on them, but also be mindful of your own self so you can lay in bed knowing that you did everything you can. Love yourself because you are defining your future. Thank you.